Are we going to see a repeat of 1995 pattern here in Maharashtra? And why are there so many independent candidates who are willing to fight elections this time around? Well, let us come to address these questions a little later in this video and try to understand what has been happening here in the state since the last couple of weeks. Let us start from the 15th of October. That is the date since when the Model Code of Conduct was announced here in the state. And after that, we saw a series of meetings taking place between both the Maha Vikas Aghadi and Mahayuti over what they refer to as the seat sharing meetings. Well, it was very clear from the beginning that these meetings are going to get tough, especially for Maha Vikas Aghadi. And both these meetings followed their own separate patterns. When you talk about Mahayuti, they were very successful in keeping most of these meetings a little secretive, if I may say so, and it seemed that everything is peaceful and a consensus will be reached by the end of these meetings, or at least by before 29th of October. That was the deadline for filing in the nominations. Whereas on the other hand, when you talk about Maha Vikas Aghadi, the picture was completely different. There were series of meetings and also a lot of piece of information, a lot of news regarding how there is a lot of disagreement, especially between Shiv Sena faction of UBT and from the Indian National Congress, especially between Sanjay Raut and Nana Patole. What transpired on the 29th is very interesting because as these meetings were advancing, one thing that became very clear to all the political pundits, observer, and everyone basically is that there is never going to be a formula in place, a formula that everyone was waiting for. That is because these leaders in these parties were never going to stay loyal to any number that they would give out in public while they are discussing the seat sharing formula. That is simply because they were not banking on the arithmetic equation, but they were banking on the winnability factor, something that becomes very important, especially when there are multiple parties in a particular alliance. Now, what happened on 29th is even more interesting because in an ideal situation, after the deadline for filing in the nomination is over, the picture should be clear for everyone, right? But Maharashtra is far from what can be considered to be a usual state at the moment. It is fairly unusual, especially the political terrain of this state since last few years. So it was very clear that no normal terrain or no normal path is going to be followed by the political parties here when it comes to filing in the nominations as well. When this video has been shot, we are already close to 24 hours, 24 hours past the deadline, and yet consensus does not seem to have been reached upon by all the major parties on both the sides. Let us talk about one alliance at a time. Maha Vikas Aghadi. In Maha Vikas Aghadi, the Congress party has said that they filed nominations for 102 to 103 seats. Shiv Sena has filed nominations on 96 seats according to the sources which are very close to the party. And NCP, Sharad Pawar faction of NCP, has filed nominations on as many as 87 seats. Now, a natural question here would be, do all of these numbers add up to 288? Not really. They add up to 285 or 86. And that is where the problem rises. So what about the rest 2 or 3 seats? And also, what about the other parties? Maha Vikas Aghadi is not just all about the 3 major parties that I just named. There is Samajwadi Party, there is CPIM, there is Shetkari Kamgar Paksh. What about them? Well, these are the questions that are important and that need to be answered. Firstly, the quota of the smaller parties has at the moment been included under the umbrella of the bigger parties. For example, when we talk about Shiv Sena, the official announcement for Shiv Sena has come only for 87 seats. And the rest of the 9 seats will basically be given to the allies, will be given to the friend parties. And the same will be applied to the other 2 major parties in Maha Vikas Aghadi as well. So point number 1 is that the quota for the regional parties or for the relatively smaller parties will be adjusted from the larger number of seats that the major parties have gotten. Now, when we talk about Mahayuti, it becomes even more interesting because we're talking about a particular alliance here where things seemed very normal right from the word go, right? But that was not really the case because on 29th, when the deadline ended, we saw that a major jerk came from Mahayuti and not from Maha Vikas Aghadi as was expected in form of Nawab Malik's nomination. Now, in Mahayuti, we saw 152 candidates being fielded by Bharatiya Janata Party. We saw 80 candidates being fielded by Shinde's faction of Shiv Sena and close to 52 candidates fielded by NCP, that is Ajit Pawar faction of NCP. And even this total does not add up to 288 seats. Similar problem exists in Mahayuti as well. They need to make adjustments when it comes to the smaller parties which are part of their entire alliance. And secondly, consensus has still not been reached upon on several seats. Now, how are they going to deal with the lack of consensus that still hasn't been reached upon multiple seats? Again, both the alliances have different approach. Just a while back, Ramesh Chennitala, who is the Maharashtra in charge of the Congress party, made it very clear that Mahavikas Aghadi is not going to see any friendly fight. They are going to make sure that extra nomination and all those places where the alliance partners, where more than one alliance partners have fielded their candidates from the same constituencies, talks will be held and the workers and the leaders there will be consulted and rather will be convinced to take back their nomination before the 4th of November. When we talk about Mahayuti, things are a little different. Their friendly fights is not necessarily a problem, and that is also because of the sheer number of the candidates who are interested to file to fight this particular election. And a good example of this would be Mumbai itself. When you talk about Borivali, where a very senior Bharatiya Janata Party leader will be fighting on an independent ticket, and even in Kolaba, where another long-term member of the Bharatiya Janata Party will also be fighting on an independent ticket against the candidate of the BJP itself. The approach that both these alliances are going to take against the rebels, quote-unquote rebels, will in the end determine what is the exact quota. And this quota will only become clear once the date for withdrawal of these forms, which is the 4th of November, is close. Now, why did we say that is this going to be another repeat of 1995 elections? And why is there so many independents that are fighting this time around? In 1995 state assembly elections, Maharashtra Assembly saw a historical result. And historical because 45 independent candidates won from their respective seats, and in the end, they played a very crucial role in forming the government back in the year 1995. And this time around as well, we are seeing as many as 150 independent candidates who have shown interest to fight as independent, not from any particular political party. However, many of them have still not given up on their membership of their particular party, and that is where things become more interesting, because an independent candidate fighting against his own party will end up dividing the party's own votes from their respective constituency. And when we talk about such a closely fought election in Maharashtra, will these parties be able to afford such kind of friendly fights? Becomes a major question, because division of votes, whom will the division of votes impact, whom will it help, and how will it end up determining the result of the election will only become clear on the 23rd, not before that. And even after 23rd, not many people are expecting a proper coalition or a proper alliance government to come in power. They still don't know whether it's going to be the same alliance that is in place now, or will it be a different alliance that will come in place after the 23rd. These are the important pointers and questions that need to be answered by both the alliances here, that is Mahavikas Aghadi and Mahayuti, before the 4th of November, which is the last date for the withdrawal of all the forms. Will they be able to convince their independent candidates to withdraw? And if not, how big will the rebellion be? It's something that we have to wait and watch out for. With camera person Praveen Ji Rohit, this is Anuj Raite reporting from Mumbai for NDTV.